famous words in motorsports. Please welcome your Grand Marshal, 2016 NASCAR Hall of Fame inductee, Terry Labonte, accompanied by Bojangles CEO, Clifton Rutledge, and Bojangles Southern 500 Sweepstakes winner, Nancy Whittick.
Darlington, are you ready to bow racing? Drivers, start your engines.
All right, engines are fired, and it's time for another edition of the Upspeed Podcast. Second one this week. That's kind of the new normal, I guess, with all this racing that we have going on. We already talked about what happened Sunday. By the way, Tyler Head and Dalton Mullinex with you as always. We already talked about everything that happened Sunday with NASCAR's return. We've gotten two more races since then. The Cup Series running their second race of the week on Wednesday night, the 500-kilometer race at Darlington, and the Xfinity Series race yesterday also at Darlington. And while Sunday's race was great and you know, it was good to have the sport back, I feel like all the conversation around it was the sport is back. Here's what it was like racing without fans. Here's what the procedures were for everybody coming into the track. Now we finally got this substance of things that really happened in the race and storylines going forward. And that, to me, really solidifies NASCAR being back.
Well, and that's a good point because, like, even in our podcast, we talked more about, like, drivers having to be there early, having to drive, all this different stuff. We focused on the racing, but like, this episode's going to be what happened on track because all that, while it was unique, it was cool and stuff and interesting. Like, I agree with you. It's like that's in the past. Even like the pre-race stuff, it didn't focus on, Kevin Harvick took 2 minutes to get through line and he had a temperature up, blah, blah, blah. It was about, no, Kevin Harvick had a really good car and it really did. That's a good, I hadn't really thought about it like that until you said it. That's a really good way of putting it. It's like NASCAR really feels back now.
Yeah, and we'll go ahead and jump right into the elephant in the room. The closing out Wednesday night's race, it really looked like Chase Elliott had the best car. Coming down, I think about 28 laps to go. He's in line behind Denny Hamlin. Kyle Busch in third place. Ends up turning him. Now, you can, what side of the fence you're on, whether he did it intentionally or not. Nevertheless, he turns Chase Elliott into the inside wall. Elliott's done for the night. The rain comes. Denny Hamlin wins. Chase Elliott gives Kyle Busch the one-finger salute. And just, again, just another thing, like, that's what NASCAR's about, intensity, attitude, drivers getting into it with each other. And, now we have this thing to focus on going forward.
Well, so obviously Chase is the most popular driver in the sport right now.
Yep.
Goes down. Kyle Busch is a very popular driver. We've talked about it before. We both think he's the most talented driver in the sport right now. But he's also the villain, too.
And he plays the villain extremely well.
He does. He plays it extremely well. And when the villain takes out the golden child, I mean, everybody riots. Twitter blew up Wednesday night when that happened.
Now, through these two races that we've had this week, having the crowd hasn't really been that much. Not having the crowd hasn't been that much of a factor, but I just can only imagine how rowdy they would have been on Wednesday, seeing Chase Elliott wreck, seeing him flip Kyle Busch off, and then, Kyle Busch's interview after the race inevitably getting put on the big screen or something like that, just to a chorus of boos. That's the only time this week I've missed having the crowd, just to see what their reaction to that would have been. But besides that point, like you said, Kyle Busch is the villain. He's very good at playing it. And this is so reminiscent of what happened at Richmond in 2008, where he spun Dale Jr. Again, I don't necessarily think that was intentional either, but it's these kind of things that just make racing that much better.
Well, and it's a storyline. I mean, because we've talked about in the past how, like, ESPN really has got out of NASCAR. But they've got nothing to talk about right now. So I watched a segment. They talked for 5 minutes about, is Chase Elliott going to get revenge this Sunday? Like, those storylines are what draws people to the sport.
Absolutely.
And like it makes because I'm interested. Both. Obviously Kyle went on to race Thursday as well, and they didn't really ask, but both have had media availability since that happened. And I don't know if you saw Chase's Zoom video today, some of it, but he just had a smirk on his face like, oh, it's coming. It may not be again, but it's coming.
And here's the thing. I don't think Kyle Busch did it intentionally. Chase Elliott admitted he doesn't think Kyle Busch did it intentionally. But obviously when you have as fast a car as Chase Elliott had, likely maybe a couple laps away from winning the race when the rains came, like that doesn't mean you're not going to be frustrated and upset that you got taken out. And just because he didn't do it on purpose doesn't mean Chase Elliott isn't going to – and, I don't think Chase Elliott's going to dump the guy, but – you look at what he did to Denny Hamlin at Phoenix after they're running it at Martinsville back in 2017 in the playoffs. Like, he may shove him up the track, or there may be a late restart, and he might, split the gap between Kyle Busch and somebody else, and just, throw caution to the wind. It's like his payback may not be the same as what happened to him, but he's probably going to do something to Kyle Busch if not this week, maybe next week at Bristol or something like that to make his point.
Well, and I think too, like, you want to do it when a win is on the line for Kyle Busch.
Yes.
Because a win was on the line for Chase. I mean, we go back to that they restarted with like 30, 29, 28 to go. Mm-hmm. We knew rain was coming. We knew rain was going to be an issue.
Yep.
So Denny stayed out on old tires. He had no more tires.
Yes.
Okay. So Kyle Busch started on the outside, or started on the inside of row one? No. He was on. They were all three on the outside. That's what it was.
Yeah, I think so.
Technically 1, 4, and 6.
Yeah.
With Denny, Kyle, and then Chase. Well, those three got clear. We know that the outside line at Darlington's the preferred line. Those three got cleared by the time they went to 3. And I don't really know what Kyle was doing. I don't really understand the line he took going into 3. I guess the thought was that he would just get up underneath Denny, slide up the wall, and then just pinch him. Mm-hmm. Well, Chase went to the outside. So Chase got the big run off of 4, has the speed coming down, the front stretch, and then bang, gets sent in. I don't know. We talked about it a little bit before. Like, do I think that he intentionally did it? Not necessarily, no. But I guess my thing is, I think he knew that was the race.
Yep.
And I was so pissed off that he just had a lapse of judgment, because Alan Gustafson went and stuck up for Chase, mm-hmm. and which I thought it was good on his part, because he and Kyle have a relationship from their driver crew chief days, and that's fine. But like, he even said, like, you don't accidentally miss it by a foot.
Right. Well, and that's the thing.
You missed it by like 1.5 feet, 2 feet.
And that's what Chase Elliott, he says. He said, Kyle Busch doesn't make many mistakes, and that's what makes it more frustrating, the fact that I got caught up in one of his few mistakes that he makes. And again, like you said, I'm pretty sure Kyle Busch knew, and again, you don't know exactly when the rain's coming, but it's not far away. I think he knew that him not getting the lead through 3 and 4 was likely him losing the race. And, that means coming down the front straightaway, maybe he wasn't as conscious of, his proximity to, Chase's back bumper, and he wasn't as careful as he would have been 30, 40 laps earlier or something like that. And I don't know what his spotter was telling him, if he told him he was clear, if he told him to wait or anything like that. But I just think out of frustration, he just got in line maybe blindly and ends up clipping Chase Elliott and sending him into the inside wall, and ended up costing him the race. That's the thing, is like, Denny Hamlin had nowhere near the best car in the race. He, obviously
he was a sitting duck. He was
literally out of tires. That was the only reason he did not pit, because you want tires at Darlington. They only had to run a few laps before the caution ended up coming out for the rain and everything. So you talk about really lucking into a win. That's Denny Hamlin. And for the second time this season, including his Daytona 500 win a couple months ago, Denny Hamlin winning a race is not even close to the top story about what happened after the race.
No. And that's the thing, is like, it's just another case of being in the right place at the right time.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing too, is like, Joe Gibbs Racing has won 2 out of the first 6 races this season, and they're still not nearly as good as they were a year ago.
No.
And don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure if you take out the laps from the Daytona 500, again, that's a super speedway race, that's a whole different story. I'm pretty sure Joe Gibbs Racing has led less than 100 laps this year. And when you talk about, especially the fact that we've gone to Vegas, we've gone to Auto Club, and now we've gone to Darlington, 3 tracks that those guys are very, very good at, that Kyle Busch, Martin Truex Jr., Denny Hamlin haven't just flat dominated any of those races. is really shocking.
Yeah, and that was what was, on one side of it, you had the resurgence of Hendrick Motorsports, and the other side of it, coming back from the break is Joe Gibbs going to find out anything? Like,
Yeah.
like what's up with them? And they're still not where they want to be. Because like you said, yes, they at one point they had a better Wednesday race than they did Sunday.
Yes.
Because at one point in time, I believe they had 4 of the top 5 positions. Don't quote me on that either. But
Rick Jones led a good handful of laps until he ended up scraping the wall and then ended up throwing his car off. Like, he definitely had a car that was a factor to win, but still, it wasn't that dominant Joe Gibbs performance that we've gotten so used to seeing over the past couple of years, especially on tracks like that.
Right. And that's the thing is, like, whether that comes back or not. But, yeah, and like you said, though, I mean, and then Denny he got lucky because he was a sitting duck. He was screwed.
Yeah.
He had an old tire that he was about to get gobbled up by a bunch of guys. And, they went to caution and they never went back under green.
Yeah. So
it's better to be lucky than good.
Right. And, hats off to Hendrick Motorsports for the improvements that they've made. And hopefully they will start finding victory lane more than the one win that Alex Bowman's got. Because obviously, we talked about Chase probably having the best car there. Bowman ended up coming home. Where did he end up finishing? He ended up finishing 18th, but he still had a relatively good car for most of that race. And Jimmy and William Byron didn't really get up there and factor in the top 10 much as they did on Sunday. But that could also be. It was a shorter race, and obviously those two guys had to start in the back, so that could certainly factor into it. But Hendrick Motorsports, I feel pretty confident saying they're the best team overall when we've gone to these kind of tracks this year.
Yeah, what's amazing to me is the parity at the top right now.
Yeah.
I mean, because, you've got, like you said, with Denny having 2 wins, it's not because he went out in there and just flat out had the best car.
Nope.
You mentioned it before we started recording. You could argue Chase could have 3 wins right now.
Very likely. I mean, Vegas for sure.
Ryan Blaney.
Yeah, Ryan Blaney up until Sunday's race.
Yeah.
He won all 4 of the previous races.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's, I don't know. I feel like there's just, like you said, like when a team like Joe Gibbs Racing wins 19 of 36 races last year, you're like, well, dang. I mean, but like it's nice to see. And I talked about this a little bit on the last podcast, but it's really nice to see like all these top teams that you hear all about all the time. They're all competing at a high level right now, and that just makes the sport better, makes the racing better.
I think the biggest thing that hurt Hendrick Motorsports in 2019, because Chase Elliott picked up 3 wins at the end of the 2018 season at Watkins Glen, Dover, and Kansas. I really feel like Hendrick Motorsports was finally figuring something out at mile and a halves, and then the package changed completely, and they were back to square one again. And again, as the season got on, I feel like they started figuring things out towards the end of last year too, and now you have another season with the same package. And obviously now you have the new body style and everything with the Camaro, and that's helping things more. But yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily Gibbs falling back. I don't think it's Gibbs falling back. I think it's just everybody else catching up to them, which, in a sport like NASCAR, that's going to happen eventually. The same team is going to dominate 5 years in a row. Other teams are going to figure things out and make it more competitive. And I just think that's what we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, I mean, but that in the Wednesday night race, it went by quick. I enjoyed it, because in my lifetime, I don't remember a Wednesday night race.
So that was the first scheduled Wednesday race since the 1984 Firecracker 400, which of course took place on the 4th of July, as it did every year up until then. So like we haven't had a weeknight race in a long, long time. It was, Wednesday night races are something that gets talked about, or weeknight races in general, are something that gets talked about each and every year when we start talking about new schedules. So, before everything happened, people were talking about 2021 schedule. Are they going to have weeknight races? Are they going to have weeknight races? We've now been put in a position where, 1, we have to do them to make up the number of races before the playoffs start. And 2, you don't have to worry about the logistics of bans and that kind of stuff where you can do them. And I'll say having a shorter race on a Wednesday night on a day where we typically don't have racing at all was pretty dang awesome.
It was, and it'll be different when, hopefully all other sports get going back where you'll be competing against baseball and stuff like that. But I mean, for me, it was refreshing,
Well,
to have actual racing. And like, it's not something like I read somebody was like, oh my gosh, we should have it every week. No, we shouldn't. I think once a month, though, up until we get to the playoffs, I
I,
think would be fair,
I
you
think
know?
I think the biggest takeaway was not necessarily racing on a weeknight, but having shorter cup races.
Yeah.
Cup races have traditionally, on the bigger tracks at least, like Darlington, Charlotte, that kind of stuff, have typically been the 400 and 500 mile races. It's just always been that way. But man, just something about condensing it down to that. And we didn't get to run obviously the entire length. They ran a total of 284 miles. But again, they almost, it still would have clocked in under 3 hours if those final 20 laps have been run. Just, we talk about how good truck races are, how good Xfinity races are, because there's that sense of urgency. The
Mhm.
stages are shorter. The entire race is shorter where you don't have time to wait around and just, let the race come to you. You run 500 miles at Texas. Sure, you still want to get up there and perform well in the first two stages. But if you're just overall going for the win, you can ride around for half the race, which is, an hour to an hour and a half before making your way to the front. Not on a 300-mile race at Darlington. You got to go from the drop of the flag. And I feel like that's what everybody was doing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and especially, guys that started in the back, Ricky Stenhouse, Jimmy Johnson, William Byron, guys that had good cars,
Hmm.
they couldn't just, pedal it in the back. They had to go.
It did.
And that made it, it made it fun. It made it interesting. Yeah, I liked it because it was shorter. I mean, look, I get up at 3:15 every morning.
Hmm.
Okay. And I stayed up way past my bedtime to watch that race. But I think that is, if you can get people, if the race had started at 6 o'clock,
Hmm.
been over 9 o'clock, that's perfect.
Well, and I said it clocked in officially at 2 hours and 42 minutes. Again, they didn't get to run the final 20 laps. So, let's say that happened, you got it another 10 or 15 minutes, still under 3 hours. Also, there was a lot of cautions too.
Yeah.
And you're not going to have that many cautions in every single race. So this race easily could have been finished in 2.5 hours if it had been a little bit cleaner. And just like, I don't know, every sport talks about condensing the time of their broadcast, football, baseball, basketball. And when you're talking about sports that have long had either like a 60-minute clock, 48-minute clock, or 9 innings, it's really, really hard to trim those down.
Hmm.
Racing's so different because you have different race lengths at different places that you can run a 300-mile Cup Series race and it's not that big of a deal. So I really think that is the biggest thing they should probably be rolling with from what we learned on Wednesday night.
Well, and what I think's funny is they still called it the Toyota 500.
Yeah, so
So
5 kilometers.
yeah, and that's the thing is like if you ask seriously, I bet if you asked half of the people that watched the race said, "What do you think?" They would never have known that it wasn't 500 miles.
Well, I mean, we've been doing that at Phoenix forever. Those races have always been 500-kilometer races, and obviously,
Yeah,
like road course races are always kilometer races too, because like the bigger numbers look more appealing. I get that. Like, I think it's easier to sell the Toyota 500 as opposed to the Toyota 311. That
right.
that makes sense, from an advertising standpoint. I get that. But yeah, it's like, not everybody's even going to be aware that it's not 500 miles. So like, if you can, you know, pull that off, do it.
Right. Yeah, and that's just as, we're learning each and every day with, the sport coming back is things are different and you just learn from it. And like you said, the Wednesday night thing, I think that NASCAR will take a serious look at it. And, as we move through these next couple of weeks where we do have these Wednesday night races, see how they perform and see what
Right.
the reaction to them. I think you could see weekday races as soon as next year.
I don't think it's going to be you know, every other week or like every month or anything like that. I think you're going to have to be very selective with the way you do it because, you got to think about the logistics of things. And a lot of these racetracks rely on people being there for an entire weekend, people camping out, which you wouldn't necessarily get on a Wednesday night. But
Mm-mm.
I mean, we're already going to be running the Busch Clash on a Tuesday next year. Why can't the All-Star race be on a Wednesday leading up to the 600? We talk
Right.
about shortening the schedule. We dedicate an entire weekend to the All-Star race right now. Honestly, I think that's a little bit ridiculous. I mean,
Yeah.
you're already in your own backyard. You can run it on a Wednesday, turn back around, have the cars ready for the Coke 600 on Sunday, and run Richmond, Martinsville, or something the week before, so you're not having to do a lot of travel. I just think it makes too much sense to have the All-Star race on a Wednesday. That I really feel like that's going to be the future of it going forward.
Yeah, it's an exhibition. Have
Exactly.
fun with it.
Exactly, and it's a race that traditionally isn't that long anyway. You can get out there and run the Open at 7 o'clock, run the main event at 8:30, 9 o'clock, and be all wrapped up by 10:30, and that's pretty tight, broadcasting window, and everybody's in bed at a decent hour. I just think everybody wins in that scenario.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think that's what you're going to see. Like you said, I think that going forward, I think as soon as next year, I think we're going to see changes to the schedule whenever it may come out sometime this summer.
I think double headers are going to be more of a prevalent thing. And again, we haven't been able to necessarily see that yet. When it looks like the Pocono doubleheader is still going to be on for next month, but I think logistically speaking, that's easier for the racetracks to do. Like
Right.
on a Saturday race, Sunday race, maybe you can have some doubleheaders where you run a second race on a Monday night or something like that, and just kind of extend the weekend. I think that'd be pretty cool. But I just really think like the back-to-back doubleheaders would probably be something tracks are a lot more likely to do as opposed to like a Wednesday night race, because you can't sell as many tickets on a Wednesday night. You're not going to get nearly the amount of viewers that you'd get on a weekend. And obviously you can't have people camping out for a one-day show on a Wednesday night either. So I think
Right.
you got to be a little bit careful with the way you do it. But, something like the All-Star race, maybe even like a Martinsville or a Bristol on a weeknight or something like that, special type of events like that.
Yeah, it can be.
It can be done. I don't think we're going to run Vegas on a Wednesday night or Atlanta on a Wednesday night, because that wouldn't make a lot of sense. You just got to be careful in how you do it. But it was very refreshing to get to experience it for once. And again, you hate the circumstances that we've had to do this, but again, it could have an effect going forward, and at least we've gotten a sample size of what it's like now.
Well, it's a learning opportunity for everyone involved.
Absolutely.
So, and there's, you try to take the best out of every situation. And I think that's what NASCAR is doing.
Yeah.
It's the perfect opportunity to experiment with it.
Again, I think the bigger deal for Wednesday night, though, is just having shorter cup races. I mean,
Yeah.
do we need to run 2 500-mile races at Texas? I don't think so. Could we
No.
run twin 312 milers and have, 2 500K races on a weekend? Sure. Why not? Kansas, run 2 300-mile races. I don't know, something like that. But, some of these tracks are just, I hate to say the races are too long, because I never want less racing, but I feel like you could benefit so much more from condensing these races. I mean, Pocono, we used to run 500 miles there. The best thing that track ever did was going down to 400 miles, because it improved the racing tremendously. And this year they're going to be running, again, assuming it stays on the schedule for next month, they're going to be running a 350 miler and a 325 miler. And I think that's going to be great for a track like Pocono.
Yeah.
Could Michigan benefit from running 300-mile races? Probably so. Could Dover benefit from running 300-mile races? Probably so. I just think it makes too much sense not to try.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Just try it. If it doesn't work, revert to what worked.
Exactly. And again, it's not like baseball shaving every game down to 7 innings, or football saying we're going to play 12-minute quarters. Fluctuating race lengths is an easy fix.
Right.
If it doesn't work one year, change it the next. But
Right.
you don't know till you try. So,
Right. Exactly.
and again, it's unfortunate that we're living in this time where we've had to make all these adjustments, but here's your opportunity, NASCAR, to do these things that you've been hesitant to for so many years. And I'm glad we're trying them, and we're going to see what works, and we're going to see what can stick going forward.
Exactly. It's just a big experiment. Is really what it is.
Absolutely. So now we'll look ahead to the Coke 600 on Sunday, and then turn around and run another race on Wednesday. So, we're 5 days into NASCAR being back, and by the middle of next week we'll have run 4 races. Like, talk about drinking racing out of a fire hose.
Yeah. It's back. It's
Very
back.
much so. Another series that made its return this week was the Xfinity series that ran. It was scheduled to run on Tuesday night. Doesn't get run until yesterday afternoon on Thursday. And, a big thing that obviously everybody's been missing sports, just in general. But a big thing about sports is those feel-good moments, just those stories that you couldn't script any better. that we see play out. And, you see them all the time in sports, and there's a countless number of them. And we've seen them in racing for a long time. Dale Jr. winning at Daytona after his dad's death. Jimmy Johnson winning the week after the Hendrick plane crash. Jeff Gordon's final win at Martinsville 2015. Just those raw, organic moments that you're really going to remember forever just because of the emotional impact they have. And I think Chase Briscoe winning yesterday's Xfinity race is going to be one of those moments we remember for a very, very long time.
Yeah, I mean, and for those that don't know the backstory, just a couple days before, Chase was at the track. Obviously they're reducing the amount of people that are at the track. So his wife wasn't there, family and friends, they're not there. So it's just really the driver sitting in the truck. And his wife was pregnant and had went to the doctor's office. He was FaceTiming her because he wanted to hear the heartbeat. And then unfortunately they had lost the baby. And, I couldn't even imagine, he's not there. And then they're like, oh yeah, by the way, you've got to go race tonight. Ended up, he didn't race, but man, I didn't know until Thursday that I guess I just missed that on Tuesday and Wednesday, but I didn't know until Thursday when he took the lead, they were talking about it. And I was just like, wow, this is just it's just so storybook, you can't script it any better.
I was getting my car worked on Wednesday, and I was sitting in the waiting room just scrolling through Twitter, and he, puts out this note on his iPhone, and it's just like you can't believe what you're reading. And, again, he wakes up Tuesday morning, ready to get back to the racetrack, excited about that. And, oh, by the way, my wife's going to go to the doctor, and I think they'd already found out that they were going to have a daughter. Just
Correct.
Like, okay, the checkup and everything. And you got to think, dude was on top of the world Tuesday morning. Just everything in his life was perfect, and everything couldn't be any better. He's going back to the racetrack and get to race again. And just in the span of a couple hours, it just all comes crashing down. Oh, by the way, the race also gets rained out, and he has to wait more days. So just if Chase Briscoe went out and ran 20th yesterday, nobody would have blamed the guy. It's like, look, he's not there, mentally, he's checked out. We get it. It's totally fine. The fact that he went out there and he didn't luck into it, it wasn't a late restart. He literally outdrove the best driver in the Xfinity Series and one of the best final laps I've ever seen. That just adds so much more to it. The fact that he's dealing with all these emotions and he still went out there, and Chase is already a really great race car driver, and just went out there and gave it everything he had and picked up the win. That was just so cool.
Well, and that's the thing is it wasn't like he went out there and, beat Brandon Jones. No offense to Brandon Jones. You went out there and beat arguably the greatest driver that the Xfinity Series has ever seen. He's the winningest driver in the series. Like I said earlier, he, in my opinion, is the best driver in all of NASCAR right now. You went out there and you took him to school. Yeah. Chase came out before the season and put a lot of pressure on himself and basically said that, for me to have a job next year, I've got to go out and win 8 races. Well, buddy, you 25% of the way there.
I was going to say, won the race at Vegas and then backs it up with this win. And he took the lead with about 50 or so laps to go, and it was him and Allgaier. Busch had the lead. He had the pit road speeding penalty, gets sent in the back, and I'm sure everybody else was kind of watching the race as I was. And you're watching Briscoe and Allgaier battle for the lead, but you're kind of watching that gap. How far back is Kyle Busch? Okay, he's 10 seconds back. All right, he's 9 seconds back. All right, well, the lap's running out. There's no way he's gonna get up there and catch him. And then that caution comes out there at the very end. Yeah. You just know in that moment, okay, well, here it goes. Kyle Busch going to blow by these guys, and that's going to be the end of it. And just as he closed in on Chase Briscoe those final couple laps, you're just okay, when's he going to pass him? When's he going to make the move? When's he going to drive away? When's he going to break all of our hearts, basically? He just kept waiting for it to happen. And even on that last lap, they slammed into each other in 1 and 2, and I was just he's going to dump him in 3 and 4. He's going to send it in there, going to send him into the wall. Kyle Busch is going to win the race. You're just waiting for that to happen, and it doesn't happen. And it's you're just so tense watching that battle, and you're holy crap, he actually won.
I couldn't believe that he held on because, like I said, it's just you're not just racing any dude out there. You're racing Kyle Busch, of all people.
A Kyle Busch that was probably pretty angry about what had happened the night before.
Well, and he was probably a little pissed off with his speeding penalty too. So it was like Clint Boyer said, and shout out to Clint Boyer. He was great.
Clint he's somebody that's grown on me so much over these past couple of years, and you know, the personality of the shows, and when he's in the booth and stuff like that, he just adds such an extra layer to the broadcast. And yeah, he just, you know, he made it even better.
But like he was saying, you know, you don't poke the bear when he's mad. And he said, y'all done poked him a bunch of times. I was like, that's pretty good. He said something else. He called him the Destroyer. He called Kyle Busch the Destroyer too.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Clint just added a great aspect of the race. But, you know, like you said, like, you just thought, you know, when he got to the back bumper of Briscoe, you're like, oh no.
You're just waiting for it.
Yeah, you're just he's gonna get him. He's gonna get him.
Yep.
And when he doesn't, Briscoe comes across the line first, and then he gets out of his car and just pure raw emotion at the start finish line. Like, that was one of the best, like, post-race celebrations I've seen in a very long time.
And you mentioned Clint Boyer, and I want to give a lot of props to the broadcast team in general during the Xfinity Series race yesterday, because, again, pretty much everybody knew the Chase Briscoe situation before the race, and they could have easily milked that the entire race. And when he took the lead with 50 to go, they could have just kept bringing that up every 5 laps or something like that. They didn't specifically mention it until he was out of the car and getting ready to be interviewed by Regan Smith. They alluded to it. He's had a tough week. He's been through a lot, that kind of stuff. But Adam Alexander didn't go into detail about what happened until the race was over. Briscoe was about to get interviewed. And I just feel like that was really good on their part, because and, not to throw shots at NBC or anything like that, but I feel like, you know, if this is the NBC crew, like, Rick Allen's going to be talking about that every 5 laps, like, Chase Briscoe, 25 to go, you know, with the emotions of everything that's gone on this week with his wife having a miscarriage. And I just feel like that would have been in bad taste. But Fox Sports really handled this well. They waited until everything was said and done to really go into the details of it. And that added to that already, like, really raw and great victory celebration. Yeah,
and that's the thing. It's just, that's a good point. They didn't milk it, and like you said, they could have, especially if they would have needed some storylines. But it was such a good ending, and, you know, to see Briscoe come out on top was just, I was thrilled. I was not only happy. What was cool though was, like, you could tell, you know, by social media, he's a well-liked guy, and you just like seeing good people be rewarded for stuff.
Good people,
and, you know, especially struggling, you know, right now.
A good dude that's a heck of a talent. I mean, I have a soft spot for dirt racers anyway, but dude can wheel the car. Like, he's going to be in NASCAR for a very long time. I don't think he needed to win 8 to 10 races this year to keep his job, because he's that talented, but he very well may still win 8 to 10 races. And going back to them not milking everything, it was kind of one of those things like, all right, well, most fans already knew what had happened while you're watching this race. Well, there's probably a lot of people that are tuning in, you know, just because sports are on. Like, they don't really know what's happening. And to see a great battle anyway, and then you get that, find out that information on top of it, just added so much more to that moment, in my opinion. You know, you've seen, like, the 2-minute clip of him celebrating, and Adam Alexander explaining everything has gone, like, viral at this point, and everybody's talking about it. And it just, like, all that coming together right in that moment just really, really made it special. And I think it's something that we're going to remember as fans for a very, very long time.
Yeah. No, I agree. That was just as good as the race was, and the race was pretty darn good. So,
and you know, looking back at the last 2 Xfinity Series races, and I know the last one before this was 2.5 months ago, Brandon Jones won that one. He also outran Kyle Busch. And Kyle Busch legit got passed by Brandon Jones for the win in that race. He gets beat by Chase Briscoe in this race. He's only got 5 more starts. I mean, is he going to win any of them this year?
Well, when we get to picks here in a minute, I'll tell you that answer.
I figured so. But, I mean, if you were betting, like, all right, well, Kyle Busch is going to be racing at Phoenix. All right, well, he's probably going to win that race. Oh, he's going to be racing at Darlington as well. After 2.5 months off, he's probably gonna win that race too. It's just like, this is almost kind of weird that he's getting beat like this.
Yeah, well, and it's like, I like Kyle Busch. I'm not like a huge Kyle Busch hater. I mean, look, I'm not happy with him right now because he wrecked Chase, but that's whatever. You know, the time will heal all wounds. But That's just when he's aggravated, when he's pissed off. Not only is he great with the media, I think he finds another gear on the track.
I like Kyle Busch for what he contributes to the sport. We talked about he plays the villain really well. For NASCAR's first week back, can you think of a better storyline than the fan favorite driver feuding with the fans' most hated driver? Absolutely not.
No.
And
No.
Kyle Busch is going to play that villain perfectly through this whole process.
Because it's good for him and it's good for Chase and it's great for the sport.
Absolutely. People hate Joey Logano too, but he's not too keen on being the bad guy. He tries to like that as much as he can, even though people still hate him. Like, he's not going to be the guy to don the black hat and be proud of it. Kyle Busch is. And that, again, love him or hate him, that's exactly what the sport needs is a guy like that that can be brash enough to enjoy being the bad guy.
Right. And Kyle is that guy. He, like you said, it fits him perfectly, and he runs with it.
And going back to what we were talking about at the beginning, like Chase Elliott is a very mellow, kind of low-key kind of guy, doesn't get too high or too low. So to see somebody pull that kind of emotion out of him, that means a lot. Like, wow, Chase Elliott usually doesn't get that aggravated with somebody.
Well, it's like my mom was asking me, she was like, what did Chase Elliott do? Or what was he mad for? So I sent her the clip, and she was like, he just never gets mad. And I said, the Martinsville race when Denny wrecked him, he got out of the car. I said, Chase went from a boy to a man that day. He gained credibility that day.
He did.
That was the day I seriously think he really stepped into that seat and said, you know what? I'm not going to get beat around anymore. This is not what I signed up for, and this ain't what we're about to do.
Well, he let so many wins slip through his hands. He comes so close so many times. Just a couple weeks before that Dover race where Kyle Busch passes him with one to go. Like, just that had happened so many times. And, Denny Hamlin cleaning his clock at Martinsville was kind of like, you know what? Enough's enough. And obviously he went on to win 3 more races the next season.
Yeah, and it was the wake-up call he needed, I think. And that's, I remember Kevin Harvick said it in – well, I'm not a huge Harvick fan. I think he understands the business model of the sport and how things, should go. And I remember him saying it, and it didn't dawn on me till he said it, but, for Chase to be successful, and for him to take the sport to the next level as the sport's most popular driver, he's got to win.
Yeah.
He's done that now. And he's before the season started, I picked him as my championship pick.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's to that point now. I think he's the point where, he should be competing for wins, especially with the resurgence of Hendrick now. He should be competing for wins on a weekly basis, really.
Yeah, and you can't tell me NASCAR didn't want him to win that race on Wednesday. And I'm not saying they were going to do anything to fix the race in his favor, but what's more of an appealing win nationally, Chase Elliott or Denny Hamlin? As far as, especially when you have all eyes on the sport all at once, which one's going to turn more heads? Chase Elliott.
Well, the good thing was Denny had the cool mask, and everybody got a kick out of that. So
again, Denny Hamlin unfortunately plays second fiddle on a lot of his wins, both of them this year. But he's a guy, somebody too, that's also grown on me a lot over these past couple of years, and just how his place in the sport, what he's done and accomplished, and what he contributes as well. But it's just Chase Elliott winning that race would have, I think, boosted Wednesday night's NASCAR debut even more to the stratosphere.
Yeah.
So, but again, Hendrick Motorsports is running well. Chase Elliott's going to get his wins this year. Heck, he may win the Coke 600 on Sunday for all we know. He ran well. He ran well there last year, so he's in position. He's going to get his win before too long.
Yeah.
So, one more thing before we go here, you wanted to talk about the conversation that's been taking place over the past day or so. Austin Dillon ended up bringing it up on Twitter, and this is something that's been thrown around over the past couple of years. Should we have a choose cone in NASCAR?
So at first, I didn't know what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what it meant. So I looked it up, and, basically that, when think of Darlington, okay, the preferred line was the outside on restarts.
Yes.
All night long. And so basically the thought would be that, say on the back stretch, you have a choose line as you're coming to green, okay, choose. And like positions like 1, 2, 3. Say they all want to pick the outside. Well, if number 4, they want to slide to the inside, get track. I mean, I don't know how it would work. I understand it. Now I understand it. I would like to see it in action. Try it at the All-Star race.
Yeah, why not?
You're talking about exhibition stuff.
Mhm.
Try it at the All-Star race. Let's see if it works. Let's see if it's a hit.
Yeah, and it's one of it gets used at short tracks all around the country because, again, a lot of short tracks, you have an inside line and outside line. One's preferred over the other. So if you're the leader, obviously the leader gets lane choice anyway. So they're going to pick the preferred line. But it's like, okay, well, should the guy that's in second necessarily be punished for being in second and, third be rewarded just because he's the odd number behind the leader? Not necessarily. So, if you have a choose cone in the Cup Series and we'll go to a place like Darlington again, it's like, okay, well, first through fourth might pick the outside line. Well, not everybody's going to, because that guy in fifth's like, would you like to be fifth on the outside line, or would you like to line up inside the leader? Well, he's probably going to pick lining up inside the leader. So it's going to balance itself out. And again, it's not like everybody in the outside line blows by the inside line, but those first 3 to 4 cars definitely have an advantage. So I think that's probably about the depth you would see it come into play. And there'll be maybe a few guys back in the field that, choose one line over the other two. But I think for the most part, you're kind of talking about like those top 5 guys that would really be affected by that. And especially with how sensitive these cars are now with this rules package and these tracks that we run at, I don't think it'd be a bad idea. Again, let's try it at the All-Star race, something like that, to make sure it's, nothing's going to go wrong or there's not unintended consequences we're not thinking about. Maybe you try it in the Truck Series next year. I don't know. But, it's something that should at least be given a shot. I don't think it could hurt.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is like it can't hurt. I mean, I was number 1 on the hate list of stage racing when it was first mentioned, and now I don't know what we'd do without it. So it's just, again, just give it a chance.
And here's the thing: is like with stage racing, not everybody's going to love it. And you don't have to love it. And I'm not here saying stage racing is the greatest thing that's ever happened in NASCAR. I've just accepted it for what it is, and I obviously there are elements that it adds to the race. And, obviously you have the incentive of points and stuff like that. And I think a choose cone or a commitment box or something like that, for one, it's going to stop the politicking on pit road of brake checking someone so they, beat you out of the pits or something like that. But I think it could definitely add an element to the race where, the top 5 cars, nobody's going to be punished for being in an odd or even number position based on what line it's better.
Right.
So
right.
I don't think it's bad. Again, let's give it a shot. All-Star race. NASCAR said they still want to run the All-Star race this year, likely during the week, during a weeknight, during the summer, something like that. Let's do it. We know they're not going to adjust anything as far as the rules package goes, so give us this. Let's try it.
Some kind of gimmick to see if it works.
That's right. So now we head into this weekend. We've got the Coke 600 on Sunday. We've got the Xfinity Series on Monday night. We've got the Truck Series on Tuesday night, and then we've got the second Cup Series race on Wednesday night. Again, it's like drinking racing out of a fire hydrant at this point. So,
and I'm not mad.
I'm not mad either. I guess we'll be back to do our next episode next Thursday after all these races have concluded.
Well, we could do that, or I was just thinking if we could do it Tuesday, then we could do a Cup and Xfinity recap, and then a Trucks and Cup on.
Okay. So for the time being, we'll make our picks for Sunday and Monday.
Also, shout out to you. You've taken the lead back.
So it's funny, but when I picked Chase Briscoe to win that race, I wasn't even thinking about Kyle Busch being in the race. But, I mean, and you obviously picked him, so I picked differently. But I don't know. I just felt like and again, Chase is a dirt guy. I just felt like with how technical you have to be at a place like Darlington, it was going to play into his hands really well. And I'm so glad I was right. Obviously, when I made that pick, I didn't know about he hadn't even learned about, what had happened with his wife's miscarriage and everything. But, watching that race close out yesterday, I was like, I'm really, really glad I was right about this pick.
Yeah.
Now I have a 3-2 lead.
Yeah.
Chase Briscoe and then Grant Enfinger at Daytona, and you obviously had Noah Gregson's win at Daytona as well. So we're neck and neck. I feel like it's going to be a close fight all year long. So
it may end up being 3-2 as well.
It might be. Well, hey, we went through 5 straight weeks of schedule at least, and neither one of us winning anything. So
Yeah.
There's no guarantees that we're going to be consistent winners.
No.
But, I'll go ahead and
But
let
that's
well,
what makes it.
yeah. So I'll
Oh,
go ahead and let you make the pick for the Coke 600 to start things off.
With the speed they've shown this year and have a little fire, I think Chase Elliott gets the 600. I think he does. I think that, they've shown, he had a car, if not the car, to beat in Vegas. I don't know. That team's on a roll. And, I think momentum's huge. I think he's going to come out and put on a show.
So we've talked about Joe Gibbs Racing not being as good as they've been in years past. But the best driver overall for them this year, despite Denny Hamlin's 2 wins, has been Martin Truex Jr. He's been running up front. He's led a handful of laps, and he's been a factor in these races. He just hasn't closed the deal. He's
Right.
so good at Charlotte. He won the Coke 600 last year. Something about Martin Truex Jr. in mile and a halves. I was riding around today thinking about who I was going to pick, and just my conscience tells me to pick Martin Truex Jr.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, because what year was it? He absolutely dominated the race.
2016 when he led all but 8 laps.
Yeah. He led the 588 of the 600 miles.
So now that we have the Roval race, that's technically counted as a different racetrack. Truex Jr. has won 3 out of the last 6 races on the Charlotte Oval, which again includes last year's Coke 600. So I don't know. And again, he's consistently been better than his teammates. He's been right there. I just feel like he's going to break through at some point, and I'm not going to be shocked if it's on Sunday.
Yeah, I can see it. So for Xfinity on Monday,
Which Kyle Busch will be racing in also.
yes, I'm actually going to go with Justin Allgaier.
Okay.
He had a good run this past weekend. If it weren't for his teammate bringing out the caution, probably would have gone on to win the race.
Which, by the way, Junior Motorsports had such a good race going. All 4 of their guys were in the top 6 or 7 until ran into Justin Allgaier.
And then the rest was history. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Allgaier. I mean, I think Kyle Busch is the easy pick, but like you said, I don't know. There's a funk with him right now. I don't know if especially if Chase were to rattle his cage on Sunday, maybe that would impact him on Monday. I doubt it because he's a professional, but you never know.
Yeah, Kyle Busch is definitely the easy pick. I'm going to go with Chase Briscoe again, though. I mean, and it was a day race last year, but Reddick won that race last year. I just feel like something about Charlotte plays into these dirt drivers' hands, and I think Kyle Busch is going to be a factor for the win. But man, Chase Briscoe riding momentum. He's obviously had a really good start to the season. I feel pretty confident picking him again.
Yeah, doubling down on him.
So, like you said, we will try our best to have a halfway point in the week, and then we'll move on to the trucks in the second Cup Series race. But how great is it just to have racing back? And the fact that we've had not only 3 races this week, but 3 great races, each in their own unique way.
That's the key. Is it's not like you've just had the same thing going. They've all been different.
Yep.
Like you said, all been different. They're same in their different ways. And for me, it's just it's so much fun knowing we've got starting Sunday, we've got 4 days of racing back to back to back to back.
And obviously, the Cup Series high downforce, low horsepower package is still controversial, but I like the fact that we get 2 very different style of races when you talk about Cup and Xfinity. Xfinity still runs low downforce, high horsepower. The Cup Series runs the, like I said, the low horsepower, high downforce, and both can have really good races. And that's what we got to see this week is both packages literally at their best.
Yeah.
And, again, I know a lot of more people wish the Cup Series had more horsepower and that kind of stuff. And I'm one of those people too, but it's like, man, when that package puts on a good show, I'm not going to complain about it.
No. That's the thing is good racing's good racing. It doesn't matter how much horsepower you got under the hood. It doesn't matter if you got high downforce, low downforce. It doesn't matter. Good racing's good racing. That's what we saw in all 3 races.
And quite frankly, that's what we've seen in every race this year. This is as crazy as the times we're living in, the races we've seen this year have all been really, really good.
Yeah.
So hopefully that momentum keeps going on, Sunday through Wednesday at Charlotte as well. So
Yeah.
well, we'll be back in the middle of next week to break down at least 2 of the races and preview the next 2 after that. So we're gonna be awful busy ourselves over these next couple weeks with all these races that we're cramming in. But hey, I'm not complaining about it.
I'm not even one
You
bit.
know, there are people out there that are still waiting, that don't like NASCAR, that are still waiting on baseball and basketball and stuff like that to come back. We got our sport back, and it doesn't restore all sense of normalcy in my sports life, but it's a big part of it.
It's a huge part for me. I mean, because like you said, you've got something to look forward to.
Absolutely. So, well, I look forward to all the stuff go down this weekend, and we'll be back to break it down next week. So as we thank you so much for listening and watching on YouTube now that I've started uploading these, which I really, really like doing. That's pretty cool. So thanks so much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube as well as Apple Podcasts. You can also listen to us on the 960 The Ref app. I'm Tyler Head. He is Dalton Mullinax, and we'll catch you next time.